Your reaction to the news of this new pope?
Well, I think it's incredibly exciting and very surprising to many Catholics. A lot of us had assumed that there wouldn't be an American pope. There's been a feeling in the Catholic Church for a long time that America has too much power already without also investing the papacy in an American citizen. But Prevost was always, or as we should now call him, Pope Leo XIV. He was always a likely compromise candidate in the sense that he ticked a lot of boxes. He was a man who had Vatican experience, but also outside experience as the bishop of a diocese in Peru in South America. He was a member of a religious order. He was known to be a kind of moderate figure who was acceptable to all, and who's the right age at 69. So the cardinals have decided, I think, in the end, after they couldn't secure a sufficient majority for either of the two front runners, that he was the best compromise, despite the fact he was American, perhaps. Or maybe the cardinals have recognized that actually English is now the global language, and that it's a great advantage to the church to have someone who can communicate with everyone around the world fluently in his mother tongue.
How will the election of an American pope affect America's voice within the Catholic Church?
Well, I think it can only be good for America's voice within the Catholic Church, although the Pope himself will start off, he'll say, you know, he represents all Catholics, he doesn't represent Americans specifically. But we know from previous occasions when John Paul II was elected, when Benedict was elected, and when Francis was elected, having a pope from your society, from your community, can often be a great boost for Catholicism in that part of the world. So I think there's a good chance that we'll see that in the United States again. I mean, the key question, though, is how this new American pope is going to get on with the American president. There was a sense under Pope Francis of a very uneasy tension between him and the Trump administration. Well, now we have an American pope. Either that's going to be redoubled, or there are going to be some serious efforts to build bridges. And I think both sides, before Francis's death, were quite uneasy about the way things were developing and were trying to diffuse the situation. So hopefully this will be a measure which helps with that.
Right, and we just heard Trump telling reporters there that he is going to be meeting with the Pope at some time, and his people have already called his people. Do you expect it to be sort of an Oval Office meeting like we saw with previous world leaders, even Mark Carney just a few days ago?
Well, I have no idea, but traditionally, presidents go to the Pope, popes don't go to the president. So it's much more likely that we'll see President Trump arriving with his motorcade in Vatican City. But we just have to wait for developments on that sort of thing.
What kinds of things do we know about this new pope in terms of, you know, where his feelings lie on different issues?
Well, I think there are two things that we know already which strike me as significant. The first one is his name, that he's chosen this name, Leo XIV. Now, that harks back very specifically to Leo XIII, who was the last pope of the 19th century and really the first pope of the modern era of the Vatican, the first pope after Italian unification. And he was more responsible than anybody else for reinventing what the papacy is, for creating this role for the Pope as a kind of global spiritual pastor. And his most famous work is a Vatican document called Rerum Novarum, and it's the seminal work of Catholic social teaching that's still cited today, in which Pope Leo XIII tried to chart a middle path between the rising forces of socialism and capitalism, to suggest how Catholics could take part in democratic societies and that sort of thing. And so the new Pope Leo is saying, yes, that's what I want to do. I need to do that again for the 21st century. The other thing which is really significant is the vestments that he's wearing. We'll notice he's wearing more vestments than Pope Francis did. He came out all in white 12 years ago. Well, this new Pope has gone back to the style of Pope Benedict, and I suspect that that is, to some extent, a nod back to traditionalist and conservative Catholics. He's saying to them, look, I'm not going to go after you. I hear you, and I'm going to take a moderate course on the kind of liturgical wars which have been going on in the Church in the last decade.
That is a very historic day, so it is appropriate to have you here with us. That is our time. Thank you very much, Miles. Miles Pattenden is a historian of the Catholic Church. Thanks again for being here.